Welcome to THA Talks, for free thought and open minds.
To license it.
Hello and welcome to THA HIJAC. I'm Shauna Collins, and along with my lovely Londoner co-host Stephanie James, we'll be going on an adventure to Gary Nicholls' Imaginarium. This is the story of a British photographic artist whose work has been described as a conceptualized neo-gothic fairy story. The Imaginarium encompasses a world completely unto itself and wholly created by Gary and his steampunk players. I think we are both very excited to enjoy this steampunk story, so without further ado, let's roll on through and speak with Gary Nicholls.
Hi, Gary.
Hello, Stephanie.
Hi.
We just started doing a side project within the THE network. I had just received an email from you about the Imaginarium project that you were working on, the saga that I believe you had an installation for that I would not be able to attend, being on the other side of the pond.
Yeah, that was actually in 2014, the exhibition. But what I tend to do now is big steampunk events. The largest in Europe, I think it might even be the largest in the world actually, is August Bank Holiday in the old town of Lincoln, which is in the UK. And I think somewhere in the region of 7,000 to 10,000 steampunks take over the old town for the whole weekend.
Wow.
And then another 30,000-ish members of the public. I was exhibiting my art and selling my book in the castle last year, and there was 30,000 people each day came. But I also do London, Comic Con, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, which London generally is around 130 to 150,000 people in 3 days. So that tends to be a very good exhibition and place to sell the book. I think you probably may have gathered that this is a passion rather than anything else, really. Actually, one of the things that I say to a lot of people is, if you've got something inside you that you really want to do, be selfish about it and do it. Don't wait till you're my age, although, to be fair, I couldn't have done this 10 years ago because the technology wasn't there for me to be able to actually produce the images that I do.
I want to go back a little bit and rewind for the listeners, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about the book and how you got started on the idea. If it was, you said 10 years ago you wouldn't have been able to do it because of the technology, but this was something that you've been interested in and involved in for I would assume most of your life.
Kind of. It's to be honest, there are an awful lot of people who wonder what it is I smoke because of the generally because my imagination. The thing with this medium of photographic sort of manipulation and therefore concept art, it allows your imagination to completely run wild. I would say that everybody says they've got a book inside them. I've taken that to a completely different level. I started out life as a graphics teacher, so it's a long time ago that I started down this path, but it wasn't really until I think 2007 when I bought a digital camera, having used film in the past, that suddenly I realised that actually there was a bit of a world opened up to me in terms of being able to create images using photographs. But I would say it's very odd, this whole thing, to be honest, because this whole project started with just 3 pictures. It was only ever going to be maybe 6 or 10 image little short story. It's now a 450 image trilogy that has taken 4 years to produce the first book. There are 42 characters, 150 extras. They are all genuine steampunks. That's my only rule. But in the second book, my plan is to fly around the world photographing steampunks from every country that I can manage to get to, and build a 4,000 person image, kind of like Lord of the Rings battle scene, where every person is a different person, not just a Photoshop clone. So, and that idea came to me because looking on Facebook, there are hundreds of groups, and they're all over the world. And I just thought I'll get in contact with a few and see if any of them are up for this, and they are. I don't have any shortage of people to be in my story because I have, half a dozen people a month email me asking if they can be in it. But the way my mind works is a character often develops because of the person that I've seen. I see somebody in an amazing costume and I somehow seem to know their whole life story. That's part of my book. So the whole idea really is that every single person is actually acting. They're given their character, they're given the basis of the story, and then they act the part out in a studio. I've taken 8,500 pictures to create the 150 that are in the first book, and it's 40 hours a week on top of my day job, because this is not my day job. So it's another 40 hours a week on top of that, which starts to take its toll after a while.
I can imagine.
So the whole idea of it really is to let your imagination run wild. And the beauty of a fantasy stroke steampunk world is you can pretty much do anything. As one of my images, as an example, is 2 steampunk angels sitting on a wall with the Empire State Building in the background. I really wanted to do that picture. I had that picture in my head for a long time. It's quite dark because they are 2 quite dark characters in the story. So I flew to New York. I bought a twilight ticket up the Rockefeller Center, and didn't realize there'd be another 1,000 people up there at the same time, which is a little bit tricky. Cleaned an area of the glass that's up there, put my lens hard against it, and took the picture that I was looking for, and then came back and created it. But I didn't know how it would fit into the story. And that's pretty much what's happened with quite a lot of the images. So I then realized that there's time travel in the world of steampunk. So they've come forward in time because they've uncovered a plot in the past, and they can then have a chat about it. No one can overhear them, and then they can go back and actually come up with a plan. So that's kind of, I really wanted to do that picture because it's quite a powerful, dark image. So generally a lot of, to explain how I work probably is the easiest thing, is that every single image is completely formed and finished in my head before I ever pick up my camera. I don't sketch anything out. I just see it completely finished. I then go wherever I need to in the world to take the elements, to come back and then sit and put the pictures together. And if I can't find the right place, then I will build that from different places. So there's a street scene in the book that is 600 hours work because it's 36 buildings from all over the UK, and then 150 people all put in one at a time. So the street doesn't exist, but the buildings are real. So it's created a street that's in my head of the place where I have set my story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. That's mind blowing to think of the amount of work and the hours that must go into that.
Mm.
So intricate.
I think what I like about it is there's no rules. And in fact, I think the one rule of steampunk generally is to be splendid. And the truth is that this whole project has allowed me to meet some absolutely unbelievable people from all over the world, because of the exhibitions and events I attend. But also, it's opened up my mind to other people too. And other people who enjoy different creative things. So this has therefore become somewhat of a collaboration. So all the props, they're all real. Everything's been made for it. Some of them have been a year's work. The Necessity, which is a glowing orb with solid silver hands, took Peter Walton, who makes the props. It took him a year to make that. The steampunk wings on the Angels, they all work. Steam actually comes out the top of them. They've all been made for this whole project. So it's not just me. It's actually a number of us. Peter Walton and his wife Julie, who she makes the costumes, and then everybody that's in it also contributes by coming up with amazing costumes themselves. So it's quite a serious collaboration,
really.
Yeah. Which is why I like it, because it's unbelievably creative. The story's mine, the obviously the artwork's mine, but everything else that they all do belongs to them, and is quite amazing, to be fair. So it's to sort of put it in context, it's a very dark tale. Kidnapping, prostitution, poisoning, murder, all the good bits are in there. It's kind of it's Dickens style, and Dickens wasn't pretty.
No.
But I am the first person to do this since Hogarth with Rake's Progress. So there's no one else that's told a story in the same way that I'm telling it, in basically fine art images. So it's a really, I think the sort of the one aspect of it is that actually dark allows you to be quite bad, really, for want of a better word. And what inspires me, if you like, is I keep coming up with images, thinking of amazing images, and then think, how the hell am I going to actually produce that? Because it becomes quite difficult to work out how you're going to actually create that imagery, and I do it with light. So rather than a photographer who uses focus, I do it with light. So my images, it's all about the lighting. And I've done a lot of study on that to actually try and get the lighting right to tell that tale, because that needs to sort of create the atmosphere.
You have to have some really serious equipment, though, I suppose. I'm talking about your camera and that sort of thing. Obviously, you're using graphic software, graphic design software to manipulate the images, but the actual camera that you're using, is that a really decent bit of kit?
Yeah, I progressed really as I started to get more and more into this project and realised that I needed to buy a decent camera. So yeah, I've got a high-end Canon, but to be honest, with most photographers would tell you that the lens is the thing that makes the difference. So I have spent a lot of money on lenses, and I've got a full lighting rig with backdrops. And rather than hiring a studio, I tend to hire a village hall, because I can set the studio up how I want, and then everybody can turn up. There's generally a kitchen, which means that we can all have tea, or the steampunk tea for sure, because that's the tea drink of choice for steampunks, along with gin.
Really, mother's
yeah,
ruin.
yeah. Gin is gin is a serious steampunk drink. So well, in the at the festival in at the Asylum in on August Bank Holiday, I've already mentioned it's. They even have gin walks. So there's a couple of effectively pub crawls, but it's all about the gin. So it's kind of it's interesting. And in fact, one of the it's the Victorian Steampunk Society is basically the people that run it and put it all on. And John Naylor and Karen Grover, they are sort of the founders. John in particular is the founder of it. And there's nothing he doesn't know about steampunk. He wrote the foreword to my book. But we've all got day jobs, all of us. They've got a television production company. So, we've all got day jobs. This just has kind of taken over my life, really, apart from the business that I run on a daily basis. But this has completely taken over my life.
Your true passion.
Yeah, and I think everybody's got one. What's interesting for me is I did an event in Belgium, and I was talking, as I am now, saying, if you've got something inside you, you really want to do. And a woman said to me, well, I've not got a creative bone in my body. To which I replied, who dressed you this morning then? Because she looked amazing. Yeah. Well, so it's not that people are not creative. I don't believe that. I believe everybody's got creativity in them. You just need to find what it is. And for me, that's what this is all about. It's and I'll tell you, I'll also explain why it's called the Imaginarium. I know there's a lot of Imaginariums out there, but there's a reason why this is called an Imaginarium. In Victorian times, an Imaginarium was somewhere where you would go, say you would go to Westminster Hall in London, for example. There would be stalls all the way around the outside of that hall, and every single one had a wow factor, and I wanted my images to do exactly that. I don't care if people don't like them, but as long as it stops them and makes them look to say they don't like them, at least it's done a job, because it's made them stop rather than just glance and carry on walking by. So that's why it was called the Imaginarium. And then each book in the trilogy has got its own subtitle. Something really special happening in book 2, but we'll get to that, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm sure. It does fascinate me how I'm sorry, I feel like I've just completely hijacked the whole show. Shana's sort of taken the back seat here. But I'm so interested in the way that your inspiration comes to you. It's so different to how somebody would normally write a book, and they'd have an idea of, a brief plot and have a rough idea of where they want to go from chapter to chapter, and they'd pitch it to their publisher, when they're signing a contract in order to put a book out. And for you, it's not like that at all. You get an image, you have to seek out how you're going to create that image. You then find the people that you want to do it, and the character gets born within that idea. It's fascinating.
And the interesting part really is, I turned down publishers to have this book published because they would not print it to the level that I've had it printed at. It was all about them making money. This has never, ever been about making money. This is about actually doing it. So the book cost me a lot of money to have printed. It's a beautiful book. I know it's me saying that, but it is, because I've spent a lot of time. Every image is spot varnished. The background colour for the book, the grey metallic colour, has been hand mixed. Every single element of that book, leather bound with a silver spine, steampunk #1 on the front. Everything about it has been done to produce a quality piece of work, because I print on metal. So my big 4 and 3 foot images, they're all printed on metal as part of a dye sublimation process, which means you get amazing detail and fantastic colours. There's only 3 people in the UK do it. I had to wait for it to come over from America to have it done, but there's a company in Scotland that do all my work. But it's done by eye. One of the images that was printed, the airship, they had to do quite a few before I was happy with the colours, because it's completely done by eye. It's not like any other form of printing. But then this is not an ordinary project.
Yeah. Gosh, it sounds so involved.
What I will say, from what you're saying there, is absolutely right. That's the whole story was completely organic for the first book. And it ends on a cliffhanger, of course, because that's any good book one in a trilogy would do.
Yeah.
The second book's different because I've had to write the story first, because it's about 6 kids in present day. And they are all, unbeknown to them, they are all the great-great-great-grandchildren of the people in the first book. And they all end up going back in time to where the first book ends.
Right.
So that's meant that I've had to write the story this time, because all those kids are going to grow up.
Yeah.
Now, what I have done is I've got the 6 kids or 7 kids that the story's about. I know exactly what they are, so therefore the characters are all completely developed in my head anyway. And the way that I tend to work is I write the sections in Excel in a spreadsheet. And then I can put the pictures next to it. And then once I've got the whole thing done, I can then start moving the rows around so the story flows, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So instead of sitting in a Word document and just keep typing away, I don't do that. I can move it all around in Word, in Excel, which means that I've also got the pictures. And if I think to myself, that really needs another picture to go with that, then I can do that. And telling the story in pictures is really very different to just sitting and writing a book, which I've never done. I mean, that's the other thing. I was absolutely worried that the story wouldn't be good enough. The pictures I knew were, but I always thought the story is not going to be good enough. But we sent it out to 11 people who didn't know me at all, and they all came back and said, "Oh my God, when is book 2 coming out?" So, but and this is probably the little bit that, if you like, blows people's minds for book 2. There are I want people to look at my work properly. I don't want people, there are a couple of people that have bought the first book, they've put it into a case and they turn a page a day because it's art, which I think is amazing. I think that is no bigger compliment for that. But I want people to look properly. So there are symbols hidden in all the pictures. You got to find them, and they won't be easy. But once you have found them, it will give you 150 words. If you manage to crack the code for the symbols, you will get a 150-word riddle. That will lead you to a website address. If you solve all the clues on the various pages through the website, you'll end up with a grid reference, and somewhere in the world, £15,000 worth of my art is buried in a box.
What? What made you do that? What inspired you to do that?
Well, there was a book in the 70s called Masquerade, and it was about a little golden rabbit.
Oh.
And basically it was a puzzle book, and if you solved the puzzle, you found somewhere a rabbit had been buried.
I'm sure I've heard of that before. That really rings a bell to me.
I remembered it and just thought, you know what, this would be a really cool idea, because my street scene in particular, there is so much going on in that picture, and the story continues all the way through it. But the idea of my way of telling a story is the text guides you. It's up to you to read what's happening in the image. So that means everybody's version of the story would be slightly different.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea of it, really.
So somebody might get they might put in the wrong code. They might get to a website, but they might get a slightly wrong code and end up going to the wrong place.
Well, shall I tell you what happened with the golden rabbit? But some people were coming home and finding someone digging up their front garden. So yeah, they might do. But the idea really is that that's a complete little extra, nothing to do with story.
Easter egg. It's an Easter egg.
Yeah, it's just an Easter egg. And I think, I know where the story's going. The whole story is about a secret that's in a wooden box, and that box gets travelled about. It moves from person to person within the story. But you are following 42 characters, and those characters are completely out of my head. And I think, as I said, I think there's a lot of people that think I am out of my head most of the time. But, you got to... I like the idea of a little bit of witchcraft, a little bit of black magic, a little bit of fantasy thrown in. But that only... So to give you an idea of, you've got to look at this as if you are the reader. When you're writing it, you've got to look at it as if you're the reader. So the object that is the necessity, which is the glowing orb, in the story, Dr. William Percival Stockdale, he invents and creates that. Now, I was well into the story, creating all the pictures, and I suddenly realised that he is immortal. And someone would go, well, he's immortal. How would he have been able to put magic into that object? Now, Scarlet Butterfly is a aerial performer and steampunk, and I saw her one weekend and we had a chat about doing a photo shoot for her to promote her work, and I suddenly realised that she's got an act which is an Elven Queen act, and I realised that here was the way that I was going to get my magic into the orb. So I invented a whole backstory. Dr. William's first wife had died of consumption. He was racked with guilt that he couldn't save her life, either by inventing something or creating something that would save her life. And he's lost his soulmate. He really can't handle the fact that she's no longer with him. So he goes off to the woods to hang himself. And the Elven Queen, who lives in the woods, appears. Now, some years before, he had saved her life when she'd been left for dead by Corvus the Witch. And she was now repaying the favour, and says to him, if you want a recompense for the fact that you couldn't save your wife, here's a secret recipe for an elixir. Build a still in the woods, create this elixir, and go out at night helping to heal the sick and the poor. So when he needs the magic put into the orb, he takes it to her. And when she's in magic mode, her whole skin takes on the appearance of a butterfly wing. So now that whole backstory came to me just because I met that one person. And that's what's happened throughout the whole book. And
it's good that you can think about that sort of thing in that kind of depth while you're writing, because there's nothing worse than continuity error. When you're reading and you go, but that doesn't make any sense because that's not been explained in any way at all. And when you're watching films and that sort of thing happens, I'm always the first person to point it out and say that's just inconsistent. So it's good that you've got the eye for detail when it comes to that sort of thing.
I think what also helps is when people are reading it, and I mean, we didn't have any issues actually. The editor Tim, he looked at it all, and he used Tim's great with words, so some of the words. But I will say, however, I've used Victorian language, and even Tim had to look that up. So I like the idea of that too. I like the idea of being able to use Victorian slang because that's what people would have said. And, the 1918, 90s, 1900s, they were dark times. They were, people were, there was a lot in Dickens' era. There were an awful lot of things going on that we would not be very proud of today, that's for sure.
No, certainly not. That is very interesting. I was just wondering, it crossed my mind because you're talking about the painstaking detail and pride you take over your work, and it's just completely your passion and it's not really financially driven.
No.
how would you feel if you were approached in the same way that perhaps someone like Alan Moore's been approached and has been asked to create films out of his work that he's done, which he's point blank refused to take any payment for, and is famous for sticking to his creative to his morals and how he feels that trying to sell an idea cheapens it. So I wonder if you are of that kind of mindset as Alan Moore is.
Well, I've had 16 approaches now for this to be a film, and I've said every single time, I'm not really interested at all until I've finished it, because this is my work. I don't want anybody telling me where my story is going.
If the same as they do with Game of Thrones, you see, it's that. Yeah, it's unfinished.
It's unfinished, but this. My intention is I will have this completely finished within the next 4 years. And to be honest, I've spent a huge amount of money. I mean, just the printing alone. I need to sell, there's only 1,000 copies, limited edition, numbered and signed. I need to sell 650 copies to get my money back. So that, you see what I mean? It's never ever been about money. And if you then put into it what I've actually spent over the last 4 years, actually creating the story in the first place, I would never get my money back. And it's not all that I have said is I would like to be able to retire and do this full time. And that means obviously I sell my pictures sell for between £1,000 and £3,000. So actually selling the pictures is the thing that makes me enough money to carry on. I'm never going to make money out of the book. If it becomes a film, there's a couple of ways of looking at that. We've got all the costumes and the props, so that would be quite nice.
I mean, let's not be wasteful here.
No. I'm not. Once I've told my story, I'm guessing, just by the way that you can read a great book, you can then go and watch a film and think to yourself, no, hold on a second, that, with all due respect to Tom Cruise, he is not Jack Reacher, for example. So, what they do in the, I think I've got a real big thing about this being British. My book was printed in the UK. There was all sorts of talks about it being printed in abroad, but it was printed in Liverpool by an absolutely fantastic team. The spot varnishing was done in Lancaster, and the binding was done in Manchester. And I'm very passionate about actually keeping it here. So it would. If it was an independent, small, in inverted commas, film company who are basically doing it for the same reason I'm doing my book, then absolutely, I will talk to them for sure. And I think that's important to me, that it would also be British made, or at least have a big chunk of people involved in it. And certainly John and Karen. I mean, Karen's won awards for British Television Society awards for costuming, and John is seriously they call the History and History Channel, they call it the John Naylor Channel. He does that many documentaries for them. So they would be great people to be looking at making this into a film, and that's kind of how I would like to see it. I'm not. This is, as I've already said, this isn't about money. It's about actually, if you think about it, I'm immortalising all those people.
Yeah.
I think the prints are good for hundreds of years, because they don't deteriorate even in bright sunlight. So they're good for a long time. And then obviously the books. So is Shana still there?
I think she is, yeah. Shana, are you all right there, hon?
Yeah, no, I was just kind of letting you guys roll with it, because it's funny, Gary, when we started, we didn't really know how the conversation was going to go, and I said, well, let's just see what happens. And Stephanie, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have anything to ask. Well,
yeah, sorry, I kind of took over.
no, this is what's amazing about this kind of project is finding out how incredibly interested we are in things that we didn't even know about before.
Yeah. No, that's right. That's right. I mean, I know I've sold copies of my book all over the world. That, to be fair, blew my mind. I mean, a guy bought 2 copies, and he lives in Hawaii. You know, it did completely blow my mind that actually not only is the fact that it's sold all over the world, but 75% of the people that have bought the book and bought my pictures are just members of the public. And I say just in that they're not steampunks. They are just people who are interested in a good story, and some are art collectors. So it's amazing that actually that many people are actually interested. I think probably my biggest regret, if there is one, is lack of PR. I just don't have time for it. And to be honest, the people that I've tried using in the past for it have proven to be ridiculous. It's probably the best way of putting it. They sent press releases to people like the Hawaii Catholic Herald, for instance. Well, and I said to them, have you actually read my book? Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you kind of think, no, hold on a minute. You can spend and waste a lot of money on PR when the truth is going out and doing comic cons and exhibitions and stuff like that. More people see your work, more people get drawn in because you're passionate about it, and actually a lot of people start to pick it up. And I think you go through a phase where, you know, I finished this at the end of August, beginning of September last year. I sold a lot of books quickly, and then it tails off, and you think, oh no, this is not good. But then I actually read that J.K. Rowling didn't sell that many books of 1 and 2. It wasn't until the 3rd book came out that people went, oh, we got to get this. We've got to have 1 and 2. So you kind of think, okay, well, it's not that I'm banking on it, but it would. The thing that I've done, there are only 1,000 copies, and if you buy number 1, you get your number reserved for you for books 2 and 3. So if you've got number 250, you'll have that same number for the next 2 books, and therefore you've got a proper collection. Now, it means more to me, things like that, than if someone came along and said, I want to buy 500 books. It means more to me that people are buying it because they want that collection. Most people seem to buy a pair of white gloves as well to read it with, which is amazing. But it's the fact that you get a proper collection. And it's I don't know, I'm just funny about things like that. I think that it completely blows my mind that people are willing to see it as a collection, but also as a great story.
Well, I think also you have the modern perspective of everything kind of being temporary, and the concept of collections, well, you know, people having a first edition Dickens or something like that doesn't hold as much weight as it had in prior generations, whereas in the steampunk community and in the genre itself, there is more of an understanding of the importance of legacy. And I think that is something that you're creating not only with the books and the images themselves, but with this amazing treasure hunt that you've created. I mean, it could be 150 years before somebody really can wrap their minds around the concept as a whole. And you've given the community itself something to live out for years and years to come. So the building of legacy, as opposed to, oh, well, I want to make some money on this, is obvious in your work. So
I mean, that's true that people, when I first started, people, oh, here we go, someone else want to make money out of steampunk. It's not that at all. And now they realise it's not. In fact, a lot of people have come to me and said, thank you so much for bringing the community together, because I've got so many people from all over the UK that are in it. They're not all from just one little area. You know, they are from groups all over the country. And sometimes I'll get someone that will email me and send me a few pictures. But then, by the same token, there's one guy who is called Montague Jacques Fromage. He is actually a steampunk rapper from New York, and he sent me his
Fromage,
pictures.
I love that.
Yeah. He sent me the big cheese. He sent me his pictures, and straight away I knew who his character was, and he's a proper rogue. You're not really sure what has happened to him at the end of the first book, but he does make an appearance in the second. And I just have to work my shoots around when he is in this country. But he goes all over the world. He's just come back from New Zealand, and he's not young. He's not a young man. But he's got a worldwide following, and everybody loves him. And so for me, it was great, an opportunity to write his character based around what I knew him to be, but also the fact that he can play that sort of rascally character. And I would say it might not mean anything to you, this one, Shana, but those magnificent men in their flying machines, there's a guy in that, which is Terry Thomas, who plays one of the main characters in that film. And I think that's Monty, really. It's almost like Dick Dastardly in Wacky Races. He's that kind of character. So,
I love Terry Thomas. I love him. He is brilliant.
So that's kind of the idea sort of develops, but I let people run with it. You know, they are, as I've already said, they are acting, but I shoot tethered to a laptop. So effectively, they are. I take the shot, and then I call everybody to have a look and say, "Look, you know, you're laughing, and you shouldn't be." There's one scene where Captain Abernathy, he's taking Eva, where she's sort of 11, 12 years old. He's taken her to sell her to work in a bordello as a skivvy. Now that shot was a Caravaggio-inspired image, because that's, again, Caravaggio uses a paintbrush to create the light. That's kind of where I got the inspiration for a lot of the early images. And at the end of that shoot, the young Eva was played by Mark, who plays Captain Abernathy, his daughter, and his wife is Lady Abernathy, Belladonna Abernathy in the book. She is kind of they are a family in real life. At the end of the shoot, she had her father's fingernails dug in her arm. It got that real. But you see, I needed the look on their faces. It needed to be real, because otherwise, you know, there's no tension. There's nothing in the shot. And if you look at it another way, I'm creating the storyboard for a film, basically. So it's being told they're not posed images. They are actually playing out the parts, and I'll get them talking to each other too, which is quite funny sometimes, because there's one shot where 3 of the harlots are really laying into Eva in one of the rooms, and they were really laying into her, and then they kept going, "I'm really sorry, I don't mean this."
How very British.
Yeah, but it's true. They were really sort of laying into her and calling her all sorts of names, but I needed the anger. I needed the anger to be portrayed. If you look at Colonel Darnay, he's got an amazing mechanical arm. And I saw him at a Comic-Con, and I thought, yeah, I know you need to be in this story. When I'm doing the shoot, I said to him, can you give me a bit of anger? And he went, I don't get angry. I went, yeah, I'm not asking you to get angry. I'm just asking you to act as if you're angry. But I don't get angry. And he couldn't do it. So I've actually, in his description in the book, when I'm referring to him, talking about Colonel Darnay, how he lost his arm, etc., I've put at the end, and he never gets angry. And I put that in, as a reference to the guy that plays the part. So, it's kind of, that's what I mean. It has been very organic in the way it's developed.
On that note, I think we are at a perfect point to take a short break. And when we return, we'll discuss more of the Imaginarium with Gary Nicholls. Stay tuned. And welcome back to THA Hijack. My name is Shauna Collins, and with me, as always, is Miss Stephanie James. We are speaking with Gary Nicholls today from the UK, who is the creator of the Imaginarium, an amazing project that incorporates photography and graphic novel kind of steampunk vibe. It's a very gritty and interesting story that's told through these amazing works of art. Now, during the break, we also heard from a group called Steampunk Unicorn. The song was Breathe. And this is a band out of Nagano City in Japan. I'll make sure to include a link at the end of the Enhanced podcast on YouTube. Now, if you are a local musician and you would like to share your music as part of our intermission experience, please do not hesitate to contact us either through the YouTube channel or links through info@hatalks.com. We are working on having separate contact information for the HIJAC radio project, but for now we are lucky enough to have THA Talks ready and willing to allow us to use both their RSS feed, bandwidth, and contact information. So again, info@thatalks.com. You can put in the subject line music for HIJAC and we'll be able to go from there. So now, without any further ado, let's go back to our conversation with Gary Nicholls. And these are genuine characters. These are people, like you said, you've picked up a lot of the characters based on people's costume and what they've created for themselves, and kind of really seeing them within your storyline. I think I found you because of the Facebook steampunk group. So
Yeah.
it was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
and that's that's the hardest part. The promotion's the hardest part. And obviously, if you're selling a book or selling pictures, you need to promote it somehow, and that's the most the difficult part of all, really. I know that there's probably an absolutely monstrous market in America, and I have been looking at doing a couple of events. There's one in Michigan actually that I've been looking to do, because then that opens up a whole new audience, potential audience to what I'm doing, but also it opens up potential characters for me too. So that's. I'm not sure whether it was you, but somebody actually messaged me, and it might have been you, but it was a while ago now, and to say it would be really cool to see all these images on in exhibition in Detroit.
Eastern Market, yep.
And I said, and I think I replied saying it would be amazing, but getting them over there would be one thing, and also I haven't had all 150 images printed on metal because of the cost. I had 26. I had 26 of them at my London exhibition, and I've had about another 10 printed since. So I think I've got somewhere between 35 and 40 images. But if you work that out, that they are getting on for £500 or £600 a time to have printed, it's a lot of money. It adds up to a lot of money. I mean, a full-blown 150 image exhibition, I would be talking about an absolute fortune just to have them printed before putting them on. It would be my dream eventually to do that, but I think that would be something I would have to be sponsored for, really.
Yeah, we talked about that because I think at the same time the Dirty show was going on in the Eastern Market at Bird's Warehouse, and I think that might have been when I was first introduced to your work. So, still think it would be a good idea. But
well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've got a friend in California. In fact, she's coming over next month. I've known her years, and she moved out to California, and I sent some to her to see if you can get me an exhibition in a gallery, because that to me is the ultimate. If I can, say, get a 2 or 3 week exhibition in a gallery somewhere, in America or any country, to be fair, that would be amazing. And it's something that, I've had one. There's one image in the book there's a very interesting story about how that came about. I wanted, my wife bought me a book called Inside London, and in there's an absolutely stunning photograph of a staircase that's in St. Paul's Cathedral. And the minute I saw it, I knew exactly I had to go and use that place. So I emailed the librarian, and the librarian said, "Oh no, I don't think it's an area of St. Paul's Cathedral, the public are not allowed in, etc., etc." But after a lot of emails, eventually they agreed that I could go and take the picture. But on the morning I was due to go, I got an email back saying, "Actually, I'm sorry, but powers that be have said no." So Tim, who edited the book, I was telling him, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll get you in." I said, "I know you know a lot of people, Tim, but come on." He said, "You probably don't know this, but my dad is the canon of St. Paul's."
No way.
So yeah, I got in, took the picture. Now, it's where
that is just pure. That's jammy. That is so lucky.
Yeah, but you see, although it is, you know what? I am majorly positive about everything. I have this belief that if you tell people often enough, things happen. So, for instance, I didn't have a London exhibition at all, but I kept telling everybody I was going to have one the following year. Next year, London exhibition. Just kept telling everybody.
Yeah.
And I went to a model making talk in London, and the guy giving the talk, because I thought, oh, actually, this is an idea. I can build sets. And because I watched the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the people that did that, the special effects people, that whole set was built in miniature. It's amazing. And I thought, well, this is a good idea. So I went to this thing and he did a talk. And I'm talking to him afterwards, and he was a big fan of Geiger. And we had a real big chat about it. And he asked me what I was doing. And I told him and showed him a few pictures. And he went, I've got a gallery. Do you want an exhibition?
Wow.
And I thought, yeah, this is it. But that image that I was talking about has the nemesis. It's where the nemesis is born, and that's the title of the image, where Corvus the Witch calls up the powers. You've got a bolt of lightning coming down from above. The nemesis is in midair. The bolt of lightning is hitting her. It needed to hit her in 3 places that only females have. Now, in order to make that image work, she needed steampunk pasties or nipple covers. She needed those. So Pete made them. They're amazing. Absolutely amazing piece of work. So they were glued on. I built a swing in the studio for her to be laying in midair to get the shot that I was looking for. I laid for 4 hours in a lightning storm trying to get the bolt of lightning that I needed for the picture.
Wow.
I photographed the St Paul's Cathedral. I went to St David's in Wales and photographed the organ and put that in the shot. And then I photographed 40 people from the Lincoln Steampunk Society and put them all the way up the staircase. And they're all looking down at what is going on in the middle of where the nemesis is basically being given this power ready for the story to continue. Now, I had a nightmare getting somebody to play the part of the nemesis because of that image. So I couldn't get anybody to do it. And all the people, and of course, it has to be a steampunk. I couldn't just pick a woman, a model who's used to doing that kind of shot. They got to be steampunks because that's my rule. Anyway, the woman who plays one of the harlots, Cassandra, her husband rang me and he went, I think Lou could play that part. And I said, yeah, Lou could play that part, but she's already playing Cassandra. Give me half an hour. So I phoned him back and I went, right, she's her twin sister. And Cassandra's going to die. And that sets up the whole revenge. That's what that part of the story is about Corvus, the witch, who is the mother. Her 2 daughters are twins. One gets killed, and then the other one decides to get her revenge, not just on Dr. William and Eva, but on everybody, and becomes this sort of Snow White queen type character in the next part of the book. So it all worked. It all worked in perfectly. I got the shot that I was looking for because actually Louise, who plays her, her facial expressions, her eyes, everything are unbelievable. And in fact, the portrait of that was in an exhibition in the Louvre in Paris. So, that's pretty cool to say you've had something on exhibition there.
Wow.
So it's the only thing that I would say is that one picture had 400 comments on Facebook under it, and I had to take it off because the comments weren't about the picture. They were about how were those pasties fixed. And when someone put, I think they might be stapled on, I thought, okay, enough's enough.
Wow.
But, the point being, I think, is that, as I've already said, Pete, there's another link there. It's all about the colour purple. I've always had a thing about the colour purple. It seems to be lucky for me, always has been. Pete and Julie, who helped me do this with the props and the costumes, and they both play the main characters, Dr. William and Eva. They got a purple camper van. Everything about them is purple, which is peculiar how we met, and that's true. But Pete has got a very dark side in his creations. So the mask that is at the end of book 1, it took him a year to make that. It's in stainless steel and the whole thing moves. The eyelid blinks. The eye glows green. It all works on a photoelectric cell, so it blinks randomly like a real eye. It's got little water bottles at the back that supply the tear ducts to the eyeball. The jaw all moves. The teeth are real. The eyeball itself is a friend of his glass eye because he said to Pete, "I can't use it anymore because the muscles in your eye no longer work."
Wow.
After a while, so he gave it. He said, "Well, I've got the perfect thing for that." And this is so. So then, when Pete said to me, he went, "I really want to make this mask." I went, "Oh my word, Pete, it's amazing." All right, I'll write it into the story, and that's what happens.
Wow.
It just gets written into the story. So something happens to Dr. William at the end of the first book where he has to rebuild his face the only way he knows how, in metal. So it's, that's what I'm saying about it being organic, and it is. It's to be fair, I'm really enjoying writing the second book from a kid's point of view. So you have to think how kids would think. There was a book I read when I was at school called, and in fact I made my kids read it as well, just purely because it's such a cracking book. It's called The Otterbury Incident, and it's about a gang of kids just towards the end of the war, and a German soldier lands in the church tower. It's an amazing story, but from a kid's point of view. So that, remembering that, has allowed me to now start writing the second book and thinking about how their emotions would be rather than adult emotions. So it brings it, and the whole reason for this is there are a massive amount of kids that are steampunks, and they love it. And I wanted to give them something. I wanted to give them something to be drawn into.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because I would think that parents that are highly imaginative would probably be the best parents in the world for young children who are living their life based a lot in their world of imagination, and to grow up in a family where playing dress up is acceptable and a whole family experience, and be able to kind of build this character set and the experience of, now you said it was 6 or 7 children on a regular basis. So do you already have the children that are parts of the families that you've already worked with? No,
they are not. They are, well, some are, some are not. So there's an event at the Leicester, the National Space Centre in the UK is in Leicester. It's in Leicester because Leicester University were involved in the space programme, so that's why it's there. They have an event which is Steampunks in Space every November, and we all exhibit, and members of the public, etc., come. And I was approached there by a couple of people. The kids were dressed up. One little boy who was 6, he's heading towards being 7 now. He was unbelievable. And his dad was building his bedroom like the Nautilus, the inside of the Nautilus, because that's what he wanted. And I said to this little boy, bearing in mind how old he is, I think you need to be in my second book. And he said to me, well, I think we'll go and have a cup of tea and have a little chat, and I'll let you know. I looked at his dad, and his dad sort of looks at me. Well, sure enough, they came back an hour later. He said, I've decided I would like to be in it. I said, well, that's fantastic. But, you've got to, as a photographer, I'm an artist who uses the camera as a tool. I wouldn't call myself a photographer as such. I'm using the camera and lights to create what I'm looking for. But you need a rapport with the people that you're photographing, because you need them to be immersed in what you're trying to do. So if you've already got really imaginative kids who, the girl who's going to play Emily, and Emily is a direct descendant of Chrysalicia, the Elven Queen, she's heavily into Dickens. as a child, 11-year-old girl. She's heavily into Dickens now, and loves the whole Victorian side of it. So you're already a little way down the line because you're already using people that are into this anyway. And in terms of the actual steampunks, they're quite used to being photographed because of, Whitby Goth Weekend and all that sort of thing. They're used to being photographed. What they're not used to doing is acting. So that's, that makes it much more interesting for them as well. I'm looking for a particular thing, and sometimes I might get it on the second shot. Sometimes it might take 20 or 30. It might be we have to have a break. But I just have a way of working that instead of saying I count people in, so I make them completely relax. If there's a picture in the book where Captain Abernathy and Dr. William, they've got their pistols out and one wants to kill the other basically, and they're having a fight in the hallway of Dr. William's house. That shot was ridiculous because they couldn't stop laughing. They were in each other's face and they could not stop laughing. And I kept saying to him, we're going to keep doing this until you two could get angry because you can't be laughing, And eventually they got it. But it did take a long time, and it's a very simple shot. But if people knew how hard it was to actually do it, you can see that actually it's much more than just two guys, fighting. They are really eventually got into what they were doing. And what's interesting about some of those, I knew what I wanted Dr. William's house to look like. I was watching a film, and at the end of the film, the main character walked into this hallway that I knew straight away that's what I'd been looking for. It took me 3 months to find it. And then I went there and photographed it so that I could use it. But it took me 3 months to actually go and trawling Google, trying to look up film locations, etc., 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 until I actually found what I was looking for. So again, it's important, the detail, and I can explain that easy as well, actually. If you're a photographer and I was taking a picture of a model, you concentrate on eyes and mouth. You focus on that. So that's the main part that's selling the picture. But as an artist, you fill the canvas corner to corner with detail. That's what I do. So all my backgrounds are heavily detailed because that's what I'm known for. And so it would never win a competition in a photography competition because it's not a photograph. It's a piece of art that every part of my pictures that you look at, there's something either going on or there's some heavily detailed object there that people need to see. So therefore, the light on the subject is the bit that draws your attention to it. So if you watch a period film or television drama, for instance, next time you watch it, look at the lighting and the way they do the lighting. And if you then look at how, and I can't remember the guy's name, it's gone straight out of my head, fantastic film, but he's a cinematographer. He's not a filmmaker. And there is a huge difference between the feel that gives. So what I try and do is I try and create that cinematographic style to the images that I'm creating because they're telling a story, essentially.
I have two kind of mechanical questions before I want to get Stephanie back in here, and one has to do with the choosing of the different people that have become characters within the story, and if you've ever had an experience where you've met somebody at a convention or at an event and just knew that they were not part of the story?
Yeah. It's easy to answer both those questions. So, as I've already said, I get a lot of people emailing me and coming up to me. People will put their name down on a list when I see them at events, because I just have one on the table and say, if you want to be considered, put your name down. Generally, well, not generally, every single person that is in the first book, they're in it because when I've met them and seen their outfit, their costume has come to me. Sorry, their characters come to me. And it's not just, so for instance, Billy Coggins, his name is Christopher Simpson. They call him Steampunk Simo. He was emailing me, and I wasn't really paying too much attention because I hadn't really thought of adding another character into the story. I'd got to a point where I thought, yeah, I've probably got enough now. This is getting silly. But I saw a photograph of him and thought, oh my word, he looks amazing. And instantly, the name Billy Coggins came to me. I knew that he, and what's weird about this is right at the beginning of the book where the baby's born in the workhouse and she works in the mill up until she's sort of 10, 11 years old. She's got two friends that are boys. And there's a shot where they're playing in the street, playing jacks in the street. So there's that shot that was really early on in the book. So Billy Coggins, it comes to me that he is one of the boys in that very first image, who's now grown up. He's a pawnbroker. He's a little bit of a dodgy character in that he makes his own wine and goes around selling illicit booze around the doors. He's a hawker. He lives off his wits. He's married to the love of his life, and they've that whole story about how they met, etc., all came to me. But he's always carried a torch for Eva because from that very first picture, they were best friends, and she was taken away from him and sold to work in a bordello. So he's always carried this little torch for her. Now that all came to me the minute that I saw him, and the added bonus is he's got a real proper working flamethrower on his arm. So I know, insane. When we took the shot in the studio, everybody ran away and just left me there. And I said, well, I already haven't got much hair anyway, so it's not like you're going to burn it off. Just after, on the count of three, fire it at me. And he did. And that's how I created that shot. The background is a derelict mansion, which is 20 rooms long, 5 stories high in Poland. And I went there for 3 days and got a lot of the backgrounds that I've been looking for. I'm going to Dublin in July for a couple of days to photograph a lot of areas of Dublin ready for book 2. I've got quite a few trips planned to areas to... The thing about this is that it's not a place that people would know. It's a mixture of so many places to create an imaginary town, but it's real, if that makes sense.
It does. I think it's absolutely genius to be able to take and kind of layer these different places and all of the residual energy that must exist in some of these images just to jump out at you, and the details that are involved in every single piece. It does tell a different story, I think, for every person that will perceive it, which is amazing. I know we are getting close to that time, and I wanted to bring Stephanie back on board and see if she wanted to ask about anything. Before we close tonight, I definitely wanted to let our audience know if you have any events coming up where they'd be able to see your work or sign up to join the project.
Yeah, well, as far as the UK goes, The next Comic-Con event is Manchester at the end of July. Then there is the Lincoln Steampunk Festival I've already mentioned, which is August Bank Holiday. There are also Birmingham and London Comic Cons in October and November. What I'm trying to do, what I would, as I've already mentioned to you, I'm trying my best to try and do 1 or 2 events in America, because the American steampunks are different to British. They have a different look, and it would be nice to bring some in. And that's certainly my intention to do that. But also, I think that this is a story that has worldwide appeal, which has been proven by the fact that so many people are from, Australia, New Zealand, right to Hawaii, America, and big chunks of Europe and Japan have actually bought copies. So I know it's got that appeal to it. And I think also it would be quite amazing to actually bring an exhibition to a different part of the world. So in terms of this country, the UK, there's, the Comic-Con events is where you'll find us. And we tend to be under a great big banner that says Steampunk Emporium. So I generally have about 17, 18 images on the wall, all the props, all the costumes. I have the wings working, so steam coming out the chimney. I have all that stuff all working for people to see. And then I generally do a little talk as well on the stage to sort of explain exactly the idea behind the whole project. But other than that, I think I'm doing a special event at the National Media Museum in Bradford as well in July. They've asked me, which is used to be called the Kodak Film and Photography Museum, I think it was called. They've got a big event on there in 14th of July, I think, so I shall be there as well. But primarily, it's all about, I've got 2 websites. I have one that's all about the art side of it, which is the g-n-p.co.uk website. But imaginariumtrilogy.co.uk is my book site. You can see there's a flip section on there, a flip book on there, which I've created from the book itself. So you can, first 30 odd pages are there. But also it's, it's where people can actually see what other people think of it, because I've had some absolutely astounding comments. And if I'm honest as well, that's the bit I struggle with. I really struggle with people saying, "Oh my word, this is amazing," because it embarrasses me and I don't know what to say. And I know that seems funny, but I'm not really a limelight type person. I don't, I'm doing this because I've got a passion for it. I'm not doing it to be famous in any shape or form. It's just purely because I want to tell the story and I want to do it in this way because it's not been done before. So that's kind of, it's nice. It's a nice thing for people to say your work is amazing, but you talk to anybody that does any form of creative work and they will all say the same thing. "Oh yeah, but I'm not happy with that bit," or "I'm not happy with that bit." It's how we all are. I think any artist or anybody that's creative, whether it's dance, music, anything, we've all got little bits that we're not completely happy with. But if I was like that all the time, I'd never finish a picture. I'd be forever tinkering with it.
But I think it's the focus of the passion that really comes out in your work, and the fact that you are doing this because it's not just something that you enjoy doing, but that you're compelled to do. And I think that a lot of the people that have experienced your work can that resonates with them, So Stephanie, I wanted to bring you in before we close with Gary today. Was there anything you wanted to touch on before we go?
Well, I I feel like I do have one more question, which I don't know if it's going to, open up a whole different area to explore. And I don't know Gary's stance on it, but the way he describes his inspiration and the way that you're inspired, Gary, and the way that when you meet people, you can almost see who they're going to be, and their name just comes to you, and it's you might call it an organic process, but there's an element of psychic ability in your work where maybe you're looking into somebody's potential past life that they've had, or the way that the inspiration comes to you. Do you think that sometimes you're actually just channeling something bigger, a story that needs to be told, that's you can't quite put your finger on where the source is coming from, but you know that it has to be done to a certain level of integrity and perfection?
Yeah, I think there's pretty much everybody that knows me has no idea where this has come from. My dad thinks I've taken a trip to the dark side. But I mean, I've always said things happen for a reason, whether they're good or bad. It's how you as a person react to the good and the bad that determines which direction you go in. You certainly meet people for a reason. I mean, this whole project, if I hadn't have gone to the Lincoln Steampunk Festival, I went there as a photographer in 2012, met Peter and Julie, and if I hadn't have met them, this wouldn't have happened. So I think that you meet people because you're meant to, and as I said, things happen to you because they're meant to happen. And I think there is an element of, there's probably an element of truth in what you're saying, in that I was always interested in finding out if, clairvoyant wise and all that rest of it, whether there was any truth in that. And I went to a woman years ago who I thought, oh no, this is, what she's actually saying is complete rubbish. But my son, he went to a psychic night, and the guy sat down to him and said, oh, you're going to marry somebody whose name begins with Z. Now that is a random letter to choose if you want to be, and he did. Yeah. So I went to the same guy, and he said to me, oh, purple's your thing. He said, you've got a purple aura, and your spirit guide, which I've got written down because it was a few years ago, is purple. And everything that relates to you, everything around you is purple. Now, I will wear at events, I'll wear something purple. Now, it's not about it, to some degree, it's also a confidence thing. If you think, oh yeah, purple's my thing, then, and you're wearing something purple, then from that moment on, nothing can go wrong. It's kind of, and how I see people, they're obviously portraying something to me. They obviously are, whether that's from a previous life of theirs or a hidden persona that they've got, I don't know, but they certainly draw themselves towards me, and I think that's probably where the characters come from, because I see it in them. I don't know how much. One quick thing before you go, and you'll love this because of what you're into as well. Yeah. I sold a book to a woman in Liverpool Comic Con, and I said to her, I always ask people what they do for a living, and she said, I'm doing a PhD in parapsychology. So I said, believe in all that then, do you? So she said, well, some things are explainable and some are not, but do you know about Bold Street? And I said, Bold Street? She said, yeah, in Liverpool. So I said, no, I don't. She said, it's a time slip. It's a time slip exactly like a program that was on the British television called Good Night, Sweetheart. It's a time slip.
Oh wow.
So I said, really? Being a little bit skeptical. And she said, oh, yeah. Google it when you get home. It's BOLD Street. Google it when you get home. So I said, well, tell me. So apparently this couple, and there's a number of stories like this, not just this one, but this is the one she told me. They're walking up Bold Street and she says, I'm going to go into Dorothy Perkins or something like that. And he said, well, I'm not coming in there with you. I know how long you're going to be. I will walk up and go into Waterstones up the top of the high street. And as he's walking along, everything changed. All the people were wearing Victorian clothes and top hats. There was a horse and carriage coming towards him. He's walking up the middle of the road by this point because he's thinking, is there some sort of reenactment going on I don't know about? And when he gets to the top where Waterstone's in, he turns around and looks back down the road and it's all back as it was. Now, the point of that is he would have been killed because it's a busy traffic, full of cars road, all doing 30 miles an hour. He'd be dead. Now, that's one of about 6 stories that there's a guy who's written a paper on it. Now, what that did for me is I've now got a time slip in book 2.
I love it. Inspiration strikes.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is for me. I'll tell you what I feel. The bit about all of this that is the biggest single shot in the arm, if you like, for me, is that I inspire people to go and have a go at doing something. This is what it is. It's about actually inspiring people to say, you know what, I fancy writing a song or I fancy doing something. And listening to me talk is enough for them to go, which happened last weekend. I did a steampunk event up in Morecambe, first time I've been there, and a guy came to me and he said, oh, I'm an artist. I went, oh, are you? And his wife gone, yes, he is, like that. I said, okay, well, got any pictures? So he showed me a few of his life study paintings that he'd done. I said, oh, right, have you taken them to a gallery or anything? No, they're in the loft. Oh. So I said to him, right, you go home, get them out of the loft and take them to a local gallery because no one's seeing them in your loft. And even if you don't sell any, people are then seeing them. Yeah. Anyway, he came back the following day and bought a book. And he said, we've talked about you all night long. You've absolutely inspired me. And his wife is mouthing behind his back to me going, thank you so much. And that made my weekend because I thought, go on, you go and do it. And that's really what, for me, that's the biggest part of all of this.
Yeah.
But it's also insane.
But that's the nature of what you're doing, isn't it? It's inspirational. Just hearing you talk about the hours that you must put in, the back-breaking attention to detail that goes into all your work and the hidden code within it. And when you were mentioning things about you liked elements of magic and the occult and things like that, I was that just looking at it, you can see that sort of comes into it as well. So it's just so many layers, and it's hard not to feel inspired when you know the hard work that goes behind the work, as well as just seeing the beauty that you actually managed to create within the images as well. So
to give you, if you're going to look at any picture at all, look at a picture that's called The Screaming Tree. That is seriously dark, that image. And I restarted that picture 31 times before I was happy with it. And it's basically a tree. They were all naked women in a studio. I then used displacement mapping to overlay a bark texture over their skin, and then I built the tree from them. And the idea is that it's where Corvus the witch lives, and she lives in this tree. There's a big door, the door in the middle going into the tree that she lives in, and her dead husband, who was a warlock, trapped all these screaming souls in this tree to torment his wife for the rest of her life. It backfires because she loves it. But to get what I was looking for, I built the tree, but the background is Yosemite in America because it's the only place I could really find that matched what I had in my head. So there's a lake. There's a lake in Yosemite. It's not that big, but it's fantastic the way the trees and the rocks in the background are all coming down towards the lake. But that gave me that I wanted this tree glows. It absolutely glows on the metal prints. And it's I knew that I'd cracked it when a woman at an event said to me, I would absolutely love that picture on my wall. It's £2,000, so it's not cheap. She said, but I couldn't have it. And I went, oh, right, why? And she went, I'd be frightened to death it'd come alive. And I thought, yes.
There you go.
Done it.
That's what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
that I'm going in quite a dark direction in book 2, and I love it.
Keep at it.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Don't steer away from the darkness. I'm somebody that enjoys a little bit of the dark side. So
yeah, well, I think most people do. To be fair, most people do. And certainly, the people that are involved with me, we all love trying to create something that's a little bit dark for sure. Yeah,
and steampunk is really quite dark. It's so dark, but it's so beautiful, isn't it? As well.
Well,
it's really got an appeal to it.
It's the thing about it is that, for instance, a lot of people would think that Dracula's a horror story. It's a love story. People don't get that. And Corvus the Witch in real life, she is a nurse in a cancer ward in a hospital. So her job is seriously stressful, but she does this to escape. And she's got a great cackle. It's a shame you can't hear it in the pictures, but she's got brilliant cackle. But she's she's got a steam-powered broom. Her husband made it for her. They're amazing. And everybody that's in it, everybody that I've met are amazing people. And it's their story as well as mine. It's just that, I'm the one who's brought it all together, if you like.
It's brilliant. It's a real community in your work, isn't there?
I think that, there has to be, because people need to believe you. See, that the thing that they call this composite type work, you're selling the fake. You can give anybody, imagination. Sorry, you can teach anybody to use a camera. You can teach anybody to use Photoshop. You cannot give everybody imagination if they haven't got it.
No,
and that's the difference.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess that's time, is it?
It's been so good chatting with you. It's been so interesting.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
So, Gary Nicholls, thank you again so much for joining
Thank you
Stephanie
very
and
much.
myself today.
Thank you.
Have a very safe drive home.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you very much.
And take care.
Gary Nicholls and another edition of HIJAC Radio there from Shana Collins and Stephanie James. Good stuff, girls. Keep up the good work. And if you'd like to check out some more enhanced versions of the interviews that Shana and Stephanie are doing, you can go to our YouTube channel. Now go to our website. There's a link on the top right. That will take you to our YouTube channel, or you can just search THA Talks. Perhaps you've subscribed already, and you can check out there. We occasionally upload stuff onto the YouTube channel. I may start using it more as time goes by. But thank you for tuning in there. We've got plenty more of this stuff coming up, and also some really cool THA Talks interviews coming up as well with John and David and myself. So till the next time, we're going to be looking forward to it, and we hope you are as well. Take care.